set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we are not doing a vlog. I'm going to be filming a video about breastfeeding. In the past 3 days, I've had about 25 to 30 people who have asked me, how did you stick with breastfeeding? Do you have any tips for breastfeeding? Like, I want to give up on breastfeeding. What do I do? Breastfeeding is really hard. Do you have any advice? So I decided to make this video. I wanted to make this video about my journey with breastfeeding and how I stuck with it, because it is quite the story, and I feel like a lot of people will be encouraged to keep going after they hear my story. So let's just get right into it. So first of all, I just want to say that if you don't breastfeed or you couldn't breastfeed and you formula feed, that is 100% okay. The most important thing is that your baby is being fed, and there's no shame if you formula feed. I personally am starting to wean my daughter. She is 6.5 months old, and I am done, and I am ready to have my body back. I am ready to be able to go to the gym without my boobs like flying everywhere because they're so big and full and everything. So personally, I'm making this video because I am almost done with breastfeeding. So hopefully I can encourage and give you guys some tips on what to do. In the hospital, they'll ask you if you want to breastfeed or bottle feed. And if you decide to breastfeed, from that point on, pretty much your boobs will be out for the first 2 months. Everybody's gonna see your boobs. Your boobs are always gonna be out because your baby eats every 2 to 3 hours for the first month, and almost sometimes 2 months. So that's just going to happen. Everybody's gonna see your boobs. It's okay. So as far as my story with breastfeeding, in the hospital, I wasn't too keen on breastfeeding at first. I wasn't really passionate about it. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Wasn't too, oh, my baby needs to breastfeed for at least a year, and if not 2 years. Like, that's just not me. I'm not all anal like that about it. So I decided to give it a shot. The nurses were like, just try it, and they were pushing it pretty hard on me. So I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll just try it. As soon as I was able to hold Ella, they put her on my chest, and about an hour or two after she was born, they tried to have her latch onto my boob, and it was perfectly okay. Like, my milk hadn't come in, so my boobs weren't engorged. They were still big from being pregnant, but my milk hadn't come in yet, so they weren't as big as they were going to get. So she was nursing completely fine for the first 2 days. We were in the hospital for 3 days. On that second night, she hadn't eaten, and every time I put her up to my boob, she would try to eat, and she would suck a little bit, and then she would cry, and that was just on and on and on. And then she would get tired and fall asleep, and she hadn't eaten for about 6 hours. And the nurse came in, and I was like, she won't stop crying, she won't eat, I don't know what's wrong. So the nurse squeezed my boob. She's like, oh, that's why nothing's coming out. Is it okay if we supplement some donor milk for you until your milk comes in? And for some reason, I felt so bad. I was like, oh my god, this entire time she hasn't been eating, and I didn't know, and now she's gonna have to drink somebody else's milk. And I felt so bad, and I shouldn't have felt bad, because the important thing is that she eats. They came back with this hamster sized bottle, this big, and it had half an ounce of milk in it. I fed that to her, she took it and fell right asleep, so happy. And that is where all of my troubles pretty much started with breastfeeding. So the next day when I went home, they sent me home with these little shakeable formula bottles with a newborn top on it, and they said, until your milk comes in, use these little formula bottles, which I felt even worse about. I'm like, I'm giving her formula at 3 days old, and the lactation consultants kept coming in, and they were like, if you give her a little bit of formula, her intestines are completely ruined for the rest of her life. You need to breastfeed, you need to breastfeed for at least a year, if not 2 years. You need to do this, you need to do this, and literally just scaring me into breastfeeding. And my mom was so mad, because she's like, you can't do that to first-time moms. You can't scare them into breastfeeding and think that their baby's entire body's gonna be ruined if you formula feed, because that's not how it is. So I felt so guilty, and my mom's like, don't feel guilty. The important thing is that she's eating. And I'm like, okay. So about that first day at home, she had formula. I kept trying and trying and trying for my milk to come in, and it just didn't happen. The next day I woke up and my boobs were they were so sore. You know when your boobs are so sore that like the sides of your boobs, like all the way back under your armpits hurt, and like all the way up to your armpits. That's how big and full my boobs were. I was like, oh my god, I don't know what's happening. So we went upstairs to my mom and I was like, my boobs hurt so bad. She's like, oh, like your milk's in. And I was like, oh, cool. This is a little TMI, but this is my story. My boob, just to give you like a little bit of my anatomy, I don't have big nipples. My nipples are really small, and so once my milk came in and my boobs got even bigger, my nipples were like really flat. They don't like come out very far, so as my boobs got bigger, my nipples got like smaller, if that makes sense, because they like stretched out and they were like really small. It's kind of hard to explain without being really weird about it. Whenever my milk came in, I tried to latch her on, and since my nipple was so short, she literally like couldn't latch on to it, and my boobs were so engorged that it was like this, okay, like not even, it was like my boobs were so circular that she couldn't latch onto it. My mom's like, it's kind of like a baby trying to latch onto a bowling ball. Like that's pretty much how it was. Like she could not latch onto it. So I drove to Walmart really quick and got a pump. If you do not have a pump before you breastfeed and before you have your baby, get a pump, because breastfeeding doesn't always just happen. Like it may take some time, and when your milk comes in, you need to get that out because it is so painful. So go buy a pump before you have a baby and spend the money on the electric one, because you're not going to want to sit there and squeeze your boobie for 3 hours. It's not worth it. I went and bought the hand pump because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna need this for very long, I just need it for a little bit. So I go and buy a hand pump, and I'm literally just like sitting there, just like, my hands cramping. I'm like, you just move to the other boob and squeeze some more, and it's just the worst experience. So for some reason at first, when my milk came in, I had like this much, and I had maybe an ounce between both of my boobs. So that's how much I gave her. She drank it, she was fine, and I'm like, well, now what do I do? And so for about 2 days I hand pumped all day long, and oh my gosh, was that the worst time of my life. I hand pumped and then bottle fed her, and then pumped and then fed her, and I felt like I was just a cow, and it was not good on my emotions after having a baby. So we went on to Facebook Marketplace, if you guys know what that is, if you like have Facebook. So my mom went on there and she found I think it was $120 for this Medela breast pump that was electric. It had like a bra that came with it, the electric pump, a ton of milk storage bags for 120 bucks when it's really like $300 or something like that. So thank God for that. And then after that, it was a lot easier because I didn't have to sit there for a long period of time. I could do both boobs at the same time, and I could like be on my phone or doing something else instead of just like sitting in there squeezing the pump for hours and hours and hours. So eventually I really wanted to start breastfeeding again. So we did a lot of research, and my mom's like, you need to call a lactation consultant to help you. So I'm on the phone with this lady, and in the hospital they are like, if you have any trouble breastfeeding, give us a call. If you have any trouble, come into the hospital and we will help you. We will set up an appointment and we will help you. No, this lady who is so rude to me. For being a first-time mom, I had no idea what was going on. And she's like, well, are you doing this? And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, well, obviously you're not, or you're doing it wrong because blah, 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 blah. And she was so rude. She's like, you're breaking up. And I'm like, oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? This is on the phone. And she's like, well, I'm not moving, so it's you. I'm like, okay. I didn't go meet up with this lady. I did make an appointment, but I didn't go meet up with her because she was so rude that I was like, I'd rather figure this out by myself or formula feed her than go and see you. So my mom and I did a lot of research, and we found a nipple shield. Now this was a thing that kept me breastfeeding. A nipple shield is like it's basically the feeling of a bottle top, but a little bit thinner. It's a rubber feeling, and it goes over your boob, and it has not a bottle top where it's like really thin and skinny. I threw them away. I should have like kept them so I could show, but just look up Nipple Shield and it'll come up and you can see what I'm talking about. This was because my nipple wasn't big enough and she couldn't latch onto it. So I went out and bought one, slapped that thing on there, and it took a little bit for her to learn how to do it. So we tried a lot and finally after a few days she figured it out. And basically you just put it over your boob, the baby latches onto it, and they make a suction and your like nipple goes up into it. It's kind of like a pump, but the baby's like the pump and the Nipple Shield's like those little things that go over. So thank God for those. Mind you, this is like when she's 3 weeks old that this is happening. I'm still trying to figure out breastfeeding at 3 weeks old. 3 weeks of doing this. I want to say she was 3 to 4 months old before she could latch on by herself. And let me tell you, the Nipple Shield, it's not easy either because it's a lot of equipment. So when you're out in public, it's like you have to get your Nipple Shield out, put that on. You have to be completely naked because it's a lot of work. So you have to like put it on, put the baby on, and then when you're done, the baby comes off and there's like still milk all in it. So you have to like grab a towel and put it underneath and like wash it off. It's really not that easy if you were just breastfeeding the baby, taking them off. It was a lot of work. Now my baby's awake, so I'm gonna go get her really quick. Can you say good morning? Can you say good morning? Say hi. Some people were really kind of inconsiderate when it comes to breastfeeding. Some people want you to like stay in their presence and breastfeed. They're like, it's okay, like I don't mind, you can breastfeed in here. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, don't offer that to me. If I'm leaving, don't offer that to me. If I wanted to stay in here, I'd ask you if you were comfortable with me staying in here. So at about 3 or 4 months, I can't remember exactly when, I just randomly decided to try and see if she would latch on without it. And I tried and it worked the first time. And I was like, I don't know if my boobs deflated a little or she just kind of figured it out. I don't know. So I started just breastfeeding her normally. From that point on, I did not care if anybody saw me in public. Like, I would put a cover on. I wouldn't be like, oh, here's my boob, everybody watch me nurse my baby. I would still cover myself up, but I didn't let anybody staring at me or anything like that stop me from breastfeeding in public. Like, whip your titty out if you need to feed your baby. It is completely fine to breastfeed in public if you're comfortable with it. So as far as how much easier it gets with breastfeeding, at first, your baby's so little and you have to like make sure that they're supported, and you're wearing this little pillow around you to make sure they're up because they're just so small. And after about 4 months, they literally can just feed whenever. You don't have to make sure that they're like sitting up, that their head is okay, that they're gonna choke. It's just they're a little bit more mobile and a little bit more sturdy, that they can just do it themselves. Like, I can literally just sit her up like this, face the other way, and she could nurse, which makes things a whole heck of a lot easier. And especially when you figure out that you can lay down on your side and feed your baby, that is the game changer right there. Whenever that can happen. I remember when that happened to me, I was like, why haven't I done this entire time? Why haven't I just laid down with my baby next to me and feed them like that? So you're not like sitting up and your back's hurting and stuff like that. So if you're not laying down on your side and feeding your baby, give it a try, because that will change your life right there. I could have easily given up on breastfeeding. It is really easy to give up on. It's something that you have to be really dedicated to. It has to be something that you are passionate about, and I wasn't at first, but as soon as it was starting to get hard, I'm like, nope, like, we're gonna figure something out. So you really have to have a strong mindset and it will work out for you. Unless you don't have enough, or you're just not really motivated to do it, which that's how I am right now, then you can do it. It will work out, and just research and do your best. And hopefully if you call a lactation consultant, they will be a lot nicer to you than they were to me, and they can actually help you and be nice. So that is my advice. Stick with it, do your research, ask for help, and just don't get all up in your head about it. If you can't do it, it's okay. And the most important thing, like I've said a few times in this video, is that your baby is fed and happy. Do not let people mom shame you for not breastfeeding. It's really okay, huh? It's really okay. We're starting to wean because I'm done so, and she's doing just fine, and I am not gonna let anybody tell me that that is not okay, because I am ready for us to move on and start being a little bit more independent, and mommy can do other things because daddy can watch her, mommy can go to the gym, and mommy can go to Starbucks by herself. I'm just ready for that. So I will keep you guys updated on that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope it helped you guys a little bit or encouraged you some, that everybody goes through it and it's not the most natural thing. The most natural thing is just to give your baby a bottle. It's not the boob. I don't know why it's like that. So if you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. If you want to see more of this kind of content, give it a thumbs up, and we will see you in our next video, guys. Bye.